Hey guys, so today I got this pretty cool package we're going to be taking a look at. Got this sent in from JohnJohns01. So let's see what's inside. Alright, got the box open. See what's in it. So, of course, if you're reading the video description, you'll probably already see. But here we have an Atari Jaguar, which this is Atari's final console they ever released. For most of you guys, if you think of Atari, most likely you're thinking of the 2600, which is one of the most iconic video game consoles ever created. But a lot of people may not know that Atari also had other consoles. The Atari 2600 was released in 1977, and it was one of the first game consoles that really used interchangeable cartridges, like how many game consoles now you have different games you can play on it, which was a new thing for the time, since before that it was all mostly just Pong clones. But then with the success of that came competition like the ColecoVision and Intellivision, so Atari made another console that was more advanced called the 5200, which unfortunately it's became well known for its horrible controller. Even when it was released, the controller was often broken, and so it became a failure. Then the video game crash happened due to the flood of the market with poor quality games and just no quality control to filter out what was coming out at the time. Fast forward a few years and Nintendo comes out with the NES over here, and it's a huge success. So Atari releases another console, the 7800, which unfortunately failed because of a lack of third-party support and a small library of games, which a lot of them were mostly just arcade ports of games that were already a few years old by then, like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and stuff like that, while the gaming industry was moving forward from those types of games. So then Atari didn't really release any other consoles for a while. They did have some computer stuff like the Atari ST, and they even had a handheld console, the Atari Lynx, which was one of the first color handheld systems, but unfortunately that failed because of a lack of third-party support and being expensive because of it being color, while the Game Boy was black and white, but was far cheaper and had a better library of games. And then now we enter the Jaguar. This was actually marketed as a 64-bit console, which was pretty big at that time, considering most consoles were 8-bit or 16-bit, or some were even 32-bit, but Atari went one step up, claiming that this was 64-bit, although it's debatable whether it really is, but it has two 32-bit processors in it. And unfortunately, most people know of this console for not having a huge library of classics. So, yeah. But either way, it's still a cool piece of hardware, and we're just going to be taking a look at it right now. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at the console. Looks like a pretty unique design for a console, especially in this era. Here we have the power button, power LED, Atari 64-bit interactive multimedia system. We have two controller ports, the cartridge slot, which Unfortunately, unlike other cartridge systems, this doesn't have a dust cover or flap that covers the console from dust, which means it's easy for the system to get dirty. What's also weird about this is if you put this on without a game, it doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't power on at all, which is pretty weird, and some people might think that it's broken if that's the case. Then we have the back, which this is the AV port, DSP. I don't know what that is. RF port, which is actually the same RF port that's on other consoles like the NES and the Sega Genesis Model 1 and the Super Nintendo. And here we have the power jack, which I think this is the same one that's on the Sega Genesis Model 1 and the NES. Here we have the bottom. Jaguar. Atari Corporation, Sunnyvale, California, USA. Yeah, the Atari Jaguar was made in the US. It even had an American flag on the box to signify that. Also in the box there was some other stuff. Like, here we have the AV cable. Just standard. Oh, actually it's S-Video, which is pretty cool. We have the power adapter. We have the controller, which this console was known for having a weird controller. Just look at this. It looks like, why the keypad? Looks like it's a phone. But what this was trying to represent was bringing back the controllers that were coming out in the early 80s, the ColecoVision and the Atari 5200, where they had keypads. But each game would come with an overlay that you would put on the keypad that would do certain things in the game. Unfortunately, those keypads are kind of rare now, but besides that, the top of the controller just looks like a regular controller, almost like a Sega Genesis controller with 3 buttons, a D-pad, start and select, called pause and option here. Trying to hold it, and this actually doesn't feel that bad. There's even a second controller in here, which is pretty cool if I ever want to have somebody come to play 2-player games on the Jaguar, but not sure who would ever want to do that. Oh look, a third controller. If one of the 2 controllers ever break, I have a backup. And then we have some games. Alright, let's see. Games we have. First up, we have Doom, which this one I was pretty excited to get. I love Doom. And the Jaguar version is supposedly a really good version of it, except that it doesn't have music. But this was actually the first home port that they made, although the first one that was released was the 32X version, but most home ports at that time until the mid-2000s were based on this version, except the SNES version was its own thing, but that was more like the PC version. But most versions, home versions of Doom, like 32X version, PS1, Saturn, Game Boy Advance, they were all based from this version, which has some slight changes to the stages compared to the PC version, and some stages removed. Then we have Alien vs. Predator. This is typically one of the games most people consider as one of the best Jaguar games. It's similar to Doom. It's another first-person shooter type of game, like another early one that's maze-like. I kind of like those type of games, so that's pretty cool. We have Tempest 2000, which is another game that's considered one of the better Jaguar games. Kind of like a space shooter type of game. Then we have Cybermorph. Yeah, this is the Where Did You Learn to Fly game. We're going to be taking a brief look at this one. And we have Iron Soldier. I don't know too much about this game. And Syndicate. I also don't really know too much about this game either. And on eBay earlier this week, I bought this game, Zool 2, which I like Zool 1 on other systems, and so I've always wanted to play the sequel, and this is one of the only home ports that they had of Zool 2, so I got this. It was actually only a few bucks more than what the cartridge alone goes for, so I decided to get a boxed version. Not in the best shape, but just an example of what an Atari Jaguar game box looks like. So let's look at the back. It even comes with the manual on the cartridge, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna be play testing this for a little bit as well. Alright, so now that we got the unboxing out of the way, let's go plug it into the TV and test it out. I'm gonna clean it up first before I do that because it was pretty dirty, as you saw. Alright, so I got everything set up and plugged in right now. I'm gonna be playing Doom for a bit, testing that out. Alright, let me turn it on and see how it is. Let's go. For some reason it doesn't look like it's reading the game properly. Hold on a sec. Alright. Turn it on again. And it seems to be working. It's weird how the title screen had music, but the gameplay itself doesn't. Alright, so let me try out this complicated controller. Having issues with one controller. Let me try the other one. Alright, so I plugged another controller in. Alright. Oh good, there's a level select. That's pretty cool. I'm a wimp, not too rough, hurt me plenty. Ultra violence and nightmare. Let's do not too rough. It's weird, this controller, the C, B, and A are arranged backwards. Alright, so C seems to be run. I don't know if you can hear that, but as you can see, the Jaguar controller buttons are really clicky. I mean, it's not the worst controller to play with, but yeah, you can really notice the clickiness. But the good thing about the Jaguar controller is that because of the keypad, you can switch weapons with it, just like the PC version, whereas on other versions of Doom, you have to cycle through all the weapons with one button, which gets kind of annoying and slow. But yeah, overall this is a good version of Doom, minus the fact that it doesn't have music during gameplay. But, you know, it plays pretty well. I would expect it as such, coming on the Jaguar. I guess id or other companies must have thought this version was pretty good too, because they ported it to other consoles like the 32X and PS1, Saturn, 3DO, and the GBA. They were all based on this version of Doom, as opposed to the PC version in terms of the level layouts and such. The only home console port from back then that wasn't based on this version was the SNES version. But that has its own story, which we won't get into that yet. Yeah, I don't want to do that just yet. What's weird is that you hear the music during the winning screens. Alright, so as you can see, Doom works, so that's pretty cool. Next I'm going to go into Cybermorph. We're going to go to flight school. Cybermorph was actually the pack-in game with this console. Has some cool music. Pick and yeah, good luck is right. Just figuring out the controls right now. Yeah, the graphics on this don't look the best, especially nowadays, but back then this looked pretty impressive. Although, you know, I find stuff on the Super FX chip, Super Nintendo, a little better than this and actually fun to play. I'm gonna purposely crash. I think you know why. It's not working. You gotta be super precise when shooting or collecting anything in this game. Said it twice. I think the speed up function on this game goes a little too fast.
Good work.
Yeah, look at all the pop-up whenever things come up ahead. And I died. I did eventually beat a level in Cybermorph, which I'll just cut to when I beat it here. So you don't see how long it took to beat that. Tried going through that ring and it doesn't. Okay. Yeah, like I said, you gotta be really precise when you collect these things.
Avoid the ground.
And I win. But yeah, that's enough of this game. And last but not least, we're gonna play Zool 2 right now. Has a nice CGI animated intro for the time, of course. Yeah, this was the only home port of Zool 2 besides the PC versions, and it was originally an Amiga computer game, and then it got ported to Jaguar. Oh, and the Amiga CD32, but you know, that console was only released in Europe. But yeah, I'm just going through the options, checking out the controls. On this, you also have a new playable character, a girl character, which wasn't in Zool 1. It's a kind of fun yet kind of chaotic and fast platformer. All the Zool games are like that. You just collect items in the stage. You gotta collect enough items and then you get to beat the stage. Yeah, you gotta collect enough items to beat the stage. It's kind of fun, although he moves a little too fast. That's one of my complaints with the Zool games. And sometimes it gets a little repetitive, but I think it's kind of fun. I like the open-ended level designs, even though it's a bit chaotic. Yeah, Zool was intended to be like a mascot character for the Amiga computers. You know, kind of as a rival to Sonic, which I've seen it compared, that people compare this game to Sonic, but this is just a lesser version of it. You gotta be a little precise when you hit enemies and such. The Zool games have some really cool music as well. You know, while this is a nice looking game, like bright, colorful graphics and such, it doesn't look like anything much more than you would get on like a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis, which Zool 1 had ports to both of those consoles. Not sure why this game didn't get a port to those. And now I'll just end the gameplay segment of Zool 2 here. I don't want to make this video too long. I did record me beating this whole level though, but I'll probably upload the full video of that another time. Unfortunately, as many of you guys may know, the Atari Jaguar was a failed console. It was only on the market for about 3 years, being discontinued in 1996. And it only had a library of 50 games total for it. Yeah, 50. That's not a large number, especially for a console in its entire life of 3 years. And what's even crazier is that at some point they released a Jaguar CD add-on, which only had a library of 13 games. Why release an add-on for a console that wasn't doing well in the first place? And the Jaguar CD is most known for being broken. Even when they were brand new, it was common to find a Jaguar CD that didn't work. And John actually had a Jaguar CD, but his, of course, didn't work. And so I wasn't interested in getting it, as, you know, something that I can't use. And a small library of 13 games aren't really that interesting to me. And they're so uncommon that they can go for around $1,000 on eBay, even if they don't work, which is pretty bizarre. Why spend thousands of dollars on a console that doesn't work? But yeah, despite the Jaguar not being a successful console, I'm still pretty glad to own one for just the historical aspect of it being Atari's final game console ever released, and just as a piece of gaming history. And there are a couple of other games I want to try getting for the Jaguar, like Attack of the Mutant Penguins and Rayman, which Rayman was a game originally made for the Jaguar before they eventually put it on other consoles like the PS1, and Atari Karts, which is kind of like a Super Mario Kart game, and a really good version of Wolfenstein 3D was on the Jaguar. But besides that, I'm pretty glad to have the regular Jaguar itself. You know, while it isn't the best system, it's a pretty cool piece of history to have. After the Jaguar, Atari went out of business in 1998, I believe. And funny thing about the Jaguars is that they sold the cases for it, like for the console. They sold them to a company that then used them for dental equipment, which is pretty bizarre when you think about it. Eventually, people bought some of those dental equipment cases and made custom Jaguar molds in different colors, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I want to thank JohnJohns01 again for sending the Jaguar and his games with it. And as always, more to come. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. Bye now.
Where did you